Welcome back into League of Our Own, and look who's here, back in the country, the big man, Adam Blair. Great to see you again, man.
Always good, Goran, man.
What's going on?
And we're touching hands.
I know.
Touching hands, and I'm pumped to be back. I guess I'm pumped to be able to sit next to you and do this podcast because...
That's what a lot of people say, mate.
What is it? What episode we're at? 12, 13?
14?
14 episodes. We're pumping them out, and every episode's been from afar.
Yeah.
And I get an opportunity to turn up to New Zealand purely for rugby league.
That's
more
right.
so than the potty. But I've just brought back a Maori for under 15s team to compete in the Rangatai Tama tournament down in Rotorua under the banner of Te Hononga. So I've created a name, and I've created an opportunity for our young Maori kids, either born in Australia or born in Sydney, to be able to stay connected to culture and be able to represent down in Rotorua come this weekend. So a great opportunity for these boys, and I guess a great opportunity for myself to get in touch with a lot of younger Maori kids over in Australia. And man, the game is growing so fast over there, and the kids are just getting bigger, stronger, and more athletic. And it's a great way to give them a place of purpose and stay connected. And I roll into All-Stars every year, Goran, and a lot of our boys are on a journey, including myself, when it comes to our culture. And I don't want them to feel that they're not in touch with who they are or not in touch with their culture, our connections. And I want them to be passionate about representing their culture. So we never get asked or get questioned about whether I want to represent the All-Stars. And we go back to this conversation a lot of times about, clubs not allowing Maori players to represent. These guys, if I teach them at a young age about who they are and what they represent, we will never get that. They will never say no when the opportunity arises. So one day, hoping, fingers crossed, that all these kids that I touch and rub hands with and touch shoulders on, that one day they're representing on the world-class stage.
It's an amazing thing that you're doing, but clearly it's taking a toll on you, because your voice sounds absolutely stuffed. So you're just screaming at them throughout the course of the week at trainings and making sure that they're obviously doing their job right. Obviously, the cultural thing is a huge aspect of it, and that's an amazing thing that you're doing for these kids who have probably lost touch with their roots. But the rugby league side of it, that's what I'm quite fascinated about, because you're plucking kids from here, there, and everywhere, and I'm assuming they don't play together regularly. So there's a bit of a melding or a meshing that has to take place before the tournament. Yeah,
I've come from Newcastle, where they've been going through flooding, so hoping everyone's all good in the Hunter region. And then I come here, there's a bit of sun, there's a bit of rain, and a bit of cold air mixed with a bit of yelling at these kids. But you have to be passionate about something, Goran. And not only am I passionate about rugby league, I'm passionate about Maori culture. And like you said, these kids, maybe one or two of them know each other. The rest don't know each other from a bar of soap. And this is the cool thing about it. It's a great challenge for myself and another Maori coach, Keith Hanley, who was the All-Stars woman coach this year. But also for some of our local Maori coaches. I've got a fella who I've run into in Newcastle called Peter Gray, who's a Maori fella from back here. Grew up in Whangarei, so Newcastle, there's not many Maori people over there, so it's an opportunity to develop these kids into better people, better athletes, stay connected to culture, but also an opportunity for our staff as well. And this is the first time Te Hononga's come into it, so these guys are creating a legacy, or they're trailblazing for us, for Te Hononga, and then hopefully in the future we have more kids, more coaches, more staff come on board and be a part of it.
Brilliant, mate. Congratulations. And this is something like you don't have bottomless pockets, right? And this is a hell of an undertaking for you and a whole bunch of other characters and businesses who have gotten in behind it. So I think for right here, right now, it'd be really important for these people who have helped out just to name check a few of them and say, look, thank you so much for making this possible, because it's great that you've had the vision and you've been able to do it, but without the help of certain individuals and companies, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, social media is a crazy thing, Goran, and without that and without our sponsors that have jumped on board, some of our sponsors And, you know, for me, when it comes to our sponsors, who are the most important people when it comes to this kaupapa or this journey that we're on with Te Hononga, we wouldn't be able to do what we do for these kids if it wasn't for them. So, you know, a massive shout out to all our, I mean, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sponsors. If I try and name them, I reckon I'm going to forget them. So I better not name them all. So I'm so grateful for the support that they have given us. I'm so grateful for the support that social media has given this to be able to grow these leagues. But I'm so passionate about what we do. So without them, bro, we don't do this.
Yeah, and you just never know. Maybe some of these kids, or all of them, could wind up playing in the NRL one day, or maybe back here for the New Zealand Warriors. So good luck for that.
Thank you.
Let's focus on the New Zealand Warriors, though, because they are coming off the back of their first loss in a wee while to the Canberra Raiders. And I don't want to say that Andrew Webster's rung the changes, but there are a couple of changes, a couple of notable ones. The real big dog is back, so you and I are pretty excited about that. Rocco Berry's in the centres, and Ali Aotearoa just makes way completely. He's been dropped out of the squad entirely. Leka Halasima, who you and I we've spoken about, and I feel like the people out there and the fans, the supporters of League of Our Own were on board with us with this one. Leka Halasima is a nailed-on starter in the back row. He's back to the bench now. The makeup of the squad, are you surprised by the changes that have been made?
Yeah, I am surprised of the changes because I feel like, there was so much consistency this year, I think, off the back of the performance against the Storm, that the players that have been in have actually done a really good job and they've been consistent at it. They've got them this far, so far. And then I thought, you know, with the game that was played, the game was in the balance for most of that game. I thought there were some pretty cool moments. You know, Canberra score a try with a man down. I think Chance was sitting on the sideline for 10 minutes and they managed to score a try to take the game away from the Warriors. And even then, they still had a chance to win it late in the death with obviously them losing another man on the sideline. But when I think about their team and the consistency, that's been mostly their strengths, the consistency. What does help them is that their spine hasn't changed, and we've spoken about this previously, that the most important people on the park and the most important players to the Warriors and to most teams is keeping their 6, 7 and 9 on the field and playing and getting reps together. Both you and I and the fans are fans of Leka Halasima and what he can do, and he's you know, I'll quickly go off topic here, but
sound like you.
The kids that I have met Leka today, and he's a fan favourite. He's a fan favourite. He's an exciting player, and that's why everyone's starting to enjoy what he does. He's tough. He brings the game. So the changes through Marata and Kirk Capewell, we know what you're going to get from those guys. You know what you're going to get from these guys. They've played at the highest level for a long time. They're consistent. Maybe it's an opportunity that Coach Webster's thinking about giving Leka a little bit of some time just to bring him through into NRL and not play him big minutes consistently.
Don't overwhelm him too soon in his career.
Because there is a little bit of error around him, but at the same time there's heaps of effort. And I think sometimes you can let that slip a little bit to get the effort side of things that he does and the good things that he does. But at the same time, you wouldn't be a good coach if you didn't observe these areas of Leka's game and not allow him to grow in that space. So there's been a big shift, a lot of players in and out, but the one thing that comes back into them is their fearsome leader, Fish, who's a big part of growing the likes of Leka, Dimitrik, Jacob Laban, giving those guys young forwards, and I reckon they've all had some growth around what Fish has brought to the team. So having him back in there, and then you got the other co-captain coming off the back of Origin, fingers crossed. Queensland win, he finishes the game healthy so that he can come back and support the Warriors, because he'll be the first one to put his hand up to jump on the field.
Last week we spoke about opportunities, right? So without James Fisher-Harris and without Mitch Barnett, opportunities for other players to stake their claim and at least say in the short term, hey, if these guys are out for any length of time, You've got us. Don't worry. You can depend on us. I'll talk about Jackson Ford in a moment. But first of all, Bunty Afoa, a guy who's been around a long, long time and basically lived off of interchange appearances for the majority of his career. I felt like he was a guy who didn't take the opportunity. He started off strong, like off the back fence. We always talk about back fence Bunty.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a sustained effort from Bunty, and that's probably why he finds himself out of the squad entirely for the Bunnies this weekend. But Jackson Ford, in 55 minutes, it was a superhuman effort from Ford. And when he plays like this is the reason why we talk about him as a potential origin player at some point, whether it's this year or in a couple of years' time. If he can put those performances consistently together throughout the course of a season, Laurie Daly or whoever's coaching the New South Wales Blues, they can't ignore that. These are some of the stats. He played for only 55 minutes. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So what's that? Not even 3/4 of the game. 55 minutes. He had 18 runs for 209 metres. That's the most run meters of any Warriors player, including RTS and CNK.
Yeah.
He made 5 tackle breaks and he topped the tackle stats with 43. That's Jackson Ford in 55 minutes against, not the wooden spoon team, Penrith Panthers. It's the Canberra Raiders who are red hot. So, I go back to the original point. We talk about opportunities. Ford has absolutely taken his with that effort, man.
He was an animal. He was an animal. And
well, this is what we've spoken about previously. The aggression in his game, probably not as much as Mitch Barnett, but he became the animal.
He had to be the leader. He had to go out there and get a job done. And he come over the top in 55 minutes. Huge effort.
55,
but, and we spoke about, obviously, the Origin arena for him in the future. You know what you're going to get with Jackson Ford as well. He's a tireless worker. I think he would be one, if not the fittest forwards in that club. And yes, sometimes there's a little bit of error around him, but you can get these performances from him. And I think the biggest thing for the Warriors, if you can get this performance out of Jackson Ford consistently, man, and when you've got something like James, and Mitch, and then you also got Jackson Ford, now you become a stronger force together, eh?
Yeah.
And that's what he can do in the short amount of space. He plays an integral part to this Warriors team and this Warriors middle pack. So enormous effort.
Yeah, and part of me though is a little sad that we didn't see a similar kind of sustained effort from Bunty, because much like Leka Halasima, he turns up to see your boys and everyone's just falling over themselves to spend some time with him. Bunty's a fan favourite as well.
Huge.
People crowd around Bunty whenever he's on show, and to not put out the best possible performance, I'm gutted for him, because now he goes away and he'll probably play some New South Wales Cup.
Yeah.
When are we going to see him again? If Fish stays on the field, if Mitch Barnett, just does Mitch Barnett things, you've got Marata who can play middle, Jackson Ford who can do everything. All of a sudden, the opportunities for him dry up, eh? So I'm starting to wonder when we see Bunty again.
He's, but Bunty's a good fella. He's a good fella and has created a legacy on the back of just back fence running.
It's like him and Nathan Brown, from the Sea Eagles, back fence runners.
That's what they've created. And I don't know if this is the right thing to say about Bunty, but I don't know if somewhere through his journey, especially early, that they developed him into a better player. Because when you come into the system at a young age, and this is when the 20s come into the game, they all come through that 20s system, and it's similar to what the Warriors are doing through the Harold Matters. There's a lot of athleticism and athletes in New Zealand, because half of them are getting taken up from Australia. And somewhere through there, I feel like Bunty hadn't been developed into the next part of moving with the game. There's always a place for one of those guys, But at some stage through your journey, you have to have developed some sort of uniqueness to your game other than running hard and straight.
Yeah.
And I get it. That's a job of a front row. I get that.
But as the game changes, you need to change with it, right?
But as the game develops and where the game's going to, you have to have added some sort of pass, offload, footwork, hit and spin, something that's going to stand out different to the next person next to you. And I haven't seen that for a long time from Bunty, if I'm being real honest, and from what I've seen. And I get it, everyone loves what he does, I know that, and he's such a good fella at it. But as the game's moved forward, I don't think the team has helped Bunty move with the game, or Bunty's happy to do what he's been doing for the team.
Yeah, but just a little bit one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Like without being really critical, it's just like, the one dimension is good.
Yeah.
Like, don't get us wrong, but you need a few more strings to the bow in order to cement a first-string spot regularly and then be a real big player in the NRL. Is essentially what we're saying here, right?
Whika Paleasina Warriors icon, fan favourite, backfence all day, every day. That was working back then. It was real old school. The game was real old school. Even, I think my first year into the competition, 2000, Shane Webke, that was his last year. He only knew one way. Ako Mealy, Bulldogs, only knew one way. Roy Asatasi comes into the game then. He starts adding footwork. He starts adding a pass. Then we see the new age of front rowers moving and creeping in. James Graham comes in. He's got a bit of a left foot, right foot, can pass the ball.
Yeah.
You know, so you see...
And then all of a sudden we get to Payne Haas.
And then all of a sudden you have someone like Payne Haas who is growing up in Australia in a system and has all the attributes of any type of player you would like to have in your team. So... I guess it's just an observation, but it's and also a feeling of being played alongside Bunty as well. And I'm sure the fans can see that as well. And I know that we enjoy what he brings because he is, like we've said, a fan favourite. But we're talking about he didn't give the coaching staff enough to be able to hold his position in the team. So now he finds himself sitting out in New South Wales Cup.
On the subject of holding a position in the team, and again, I don't want to be hypercritical of players, and especially DALLIN WATENE-ZELEZNIAK, who's only just come back from injury. He's played 3 games. But when you start to compare DWZ and TAINE TUAUPIKI'S, who did a very good job on the wing in Dallin's absence, are we starting to see, I don't know, not enough from Dallin? Like looking at some of his efforts recently, I think he had, at the weekend, of his 12 touches, he came up with 3 handling errors, and he's not making as many metres as what TAINE TUAUPIKI'S was. Completely different players, and I know the standing which Dallin has and how, like, the high regard that Andrew Webster has for Dallin, but at what point does he start to think, well, I was getting a lot more from TAINE TUAUPIKI'S, and even though Taine's preferred position is fullback, do you start to think, well, look, Dallin, go back to reserve grade, show me what I know you can do, but until that time, until you can actually produce, Taine's our guy now.
I think when I think about Dallin, and I don't know, I put myself in Coach Webster's seat. We know what Dallin can offer, but it's a conversation between, I guess, Coach and Dallin about, I know what you can bring. You need to be a bit more consistent with what you're doing to show us, you know, how important you are to this team. I think that's the conversation you have with Dallin. Numbers don't lie. I'm not big on stats, but Taine didn't look out of place, did he?
No, there was one game against the Storm, right? That was probably it. Him against Xavier Coates.
But I think that was everyone. It wasn't just him, you know. So
that's right.
I guess I think this is a tough one for the coach, and he's made the decision. I think because of the experience that Dallin has as a winger, but also knows in the background that, man, their New South Wales Cup team's winning as well, that if I can call someone up at any time, they are ready and humming, ready to go. You can't pick all your best players in the team when you've got, say, 25. You know what I mean? But what does work for the Warriors is that these guys that are just out of the 17 or out of the 18 are playing consistent footy down below them. So when the time comes that these guys are ready to go, the trust of knowing that TAINE can get a job done there because he's played there and he's seen him, it's an easy choice. So you give Dallin a bit of a sit down, you have a chat with him and ask him, you know, have a chat around where he seems to think he's at, understanding what is he 3 games back in, 3 games back into from a long stint on the sideline. TAINE's managed to play some consistent footy right up to when he got moved out of the team.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think you give Dallin a couple of more weeks with a conversation about, you know, what we're trying to do, what he wants from him, and then from there you start making some decisions.
I you know, we're making comparisons here, you know, Dallin to TAINE Tuaupiki, and they're completely different players. I'm about to make a comparison between Tamati Martin and somebody who plays for the Storm, because I don't quite grasp the concept of having Tamati on your bench when you're barely playing him. Now the minutes he's been playing, it's almost like, well, why? Not a case of why bother, but you're not exactly giving your player faith and confidence when he's playing. What is it? 23 minutes, 20 minutes, 19 and 7. The guy I want to compare him to is Tyron Wishart. And now he's a guy who can play in the halves and he can play out the back as well, like Tamati does, and maybe he occupies a middle role. Now, in 9 interchange appearances this year for Tyron Wishart, only twice has he played under 25 minutes. So when you play him on the bench, well, when Craig Bellamy plays Tyron Wishart on the bench, he knows that he's going to have a huge opportunity to impress upon the contest and change the outcome of that game. Tamati is like living off of scraps, and that can't be building confidence for the player. Like, how should he be approaching game day when he's named on the bench and his opportunities are so limited?
Well, the Storm have a system. The Storm have a system on how they're going to use their players, and everyone knows exactly what their role is and their job is and their responsibility is in that system. We clearly can see that with the minutes played, that there's what do we say? There's a thought that we might put him in there for this much time, or we might just put him on when Wade looks tired or.
Random,
but there's not actually, doesn't seem to see, just purely on the minutes and the timing, that there's a plan for when they're going to put him on the field, and that's purely just on looking at those numbers and those times that he's playing 7 minutes. You can't expect.
I think it was 7 minutes against the Dolphins a couple of weeks back.
Like 7 minutes isn't any. You can't really do too much. And I know you always ask a player, no matter how many minutes you do get in the game, just give us your best 7 minutes, if it's 7 or 10. But I think for me, Tamati's not a bench player. He's a starting half, 6. You could start at 1 if you need to, but he's not a bench player. So you either have him in the team or you don't, because they've got more halves sitting behind them as well down in New South Wales Cup, who are doing a great job, and so is Tamati when he gets those opportunities down there. So unless, they get an injury to, Chanel or Luke Metcalf, then I don't see room for him being on the bench, because he's not a bench player in my opinion. So by looking at those numbers, there isn't any consistency with what they want to do with Tamati on the field. It's just get him out there when we see something, and hopefully Tamati can do something to help the game. So it's hard for a player. I guess you'd rather be playing NRL, but at the same time, when you look at those timings, you most probably want to get more football under your belt. Get more football under the belt, playing footy, rather than sitting back and playing minimal time. I guess that's the up to the coaching staff and how to make that work in a better way that helps Tamati, but also helps the team.
What would your advice be then for Andrew Webster in handling Tamati? Come on, mate.
You're asking me.
Yeah, because he listens. He listens and he watches.
Andrew Webster advice on my thoughts,
mate. You've done a fair bit of coaching. I mean, because you want to incentivize these players, and where is the incentive for Tamati to put his best foot forward in 7 minutes of a game? Like, how do you actually? How do you do that?
I think if you're a player and you're a Tamati, for example, the conversations, they're all grown men. The conversation is sitting down with Andrew Webster and saying, "Hey, where do I fit in this team?" You know, because if I look at this team and purely my opinions, my thoughts is that Chanel, Luke Metcalf are your 6 and 7. That's what it is. So unfortunately, there's players, like I said before, Tamati's one of them, behind those guys at the moment. And unless there's an injury, they don't play NRL. So they keep working on their trade, waiting for opportunities to pop up. And then when the time's right, you're ready to go. So I think the message would be to the players, and I guess this is my thing to Coach Webster.
Yeah. This is the message. This is the message.
Is to have these conversations with the halves and say, I just need you to be ready just in case something happens. So I need you to go away and keep working your butt off, because every 35 players in their top squad are helping each other be the best that they can. Yeah. Because if your New South Wales Cup is going so well, they're sitting at the top of the table, and the Warriors are sitting where they're sitting, something is going right in the place. Yep. You know, something is going right in the place. But you just can't chuck someone in just to chuck them in there because it's Tamati Martin.
No. I understand that. But at the same time, the Melbourne Storm, in our example here, they've found a way to keep somebody like Tyron Wishart happy and comfortable in that bench role. So if Webster is happy enough to offer Tamati a bench role, surely it's got to be more than a handful of minutes every week. And you know, like I've said this the other week, I'm not thick. And when you look at Luke Metcalf, who, okay, maybe he didn't have his best game at the weekend, and sometimes in the red zone they didn't take the right option, and that's probably why they didn't beat the Raiders at Mount Smart. But when you look at his overall performances, the decision to put Luke Metcalf at 7 has been a masterstroke. Yep. It's been genius. And all you need to do is look at the DALLIN voting and see that he's at the top of it now. He leads it by 2 points from Will Kennedy, and then
Here we go.
Tedesco is another point behind that. So, you know, he's leading Kennedy by 2, Tedesco by 3, and now the voting goes silent. And who's leading it but Luke Metcalf?
One of their own.
Yeah,
one of their own.
One of their own. But one of our own as well. It's, best of both worlds.
So, I think it's a win-win for the Warriors, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. But, I understand, like, on the basis of Luke's form, there's not a spot in the 7 for Tamati. And Chanel, I think, has been doing enough to keep the wolf from the door, right? Yeah. But if you're going to introduce him as a bench player, what is his exact role? If, as you say, it's just, look, we don't actually know how many minutes you're going to get, but just be ready when we come to you. Yeah. Or, look, we're trying to grow it. We're trying to figure it out. Look, we don't have the answers right now, but at some point we'll figure it out for you, man. And please just be patient.
Well, we're in the NRL. There is no time really to be patient, because it's the toughest game in the world, and like I said, there is no spot for Tamati in my team if he's not starting. And that's just me, my opinion.
We're resigned to losing him then.
Well, that's up to the Warriors to make those decisions, isn't it? So you've got to be adamant that you see a future and you see where he fits in those plans. And he was one of those players that were getting spoken about around the same time as Chance before he locked into the Warriors. So there's no certainty around Tamati unless someone else knows something that I don't, or someone else has heard or read.
Look him a text.
Maybe I'm wrong. I'm surely our fans will tell me.
Yeah.
Because they love what we do. But I just think, June 30 is around the corner. There's still opportunities, and I think, man, a club would take a player like Tamati.
I've got the Eels jersey on the wall.
Yeah.
Right? Dylan Brown gone to your Knights.
There it is.
Lachlan Galvin.
Yeah.
Confirmed for Dogs, right? Yeah. I would not be unhappy if Tamati ended up wearing blue and gold next season, because I know exactly what I'm going to get from him, and I think he would form a wonderful partnership with Mitch Moses.
That's not a bad thought.
Look, if I can't see Tamati playing regular game time with the Warriors, I'll gladly have him for the blue and gold Parramatta Eels, mate.
Yeah, man, because I guess if Parra were chasing someone like Lockie Galvin, and I know he's a bit younger and he's got a fair bit of game in front of him, a bit of time in front of him, but you wouldn't go wrong if you went after someone like Tamati to fill that spot and help guide some of that team around. He wouldn't look out of place.
And playing with Dylan Walker, who he's obviously
Built
spent
some
time
connections with. Clearly they're on the lookout for a six.
They're definitely on the lookout
for a six. They've lost, obviously, Dylan Brown, and then obviously if they haven't got in the market for the young kid, now they're looking to find someone.
Yeah.
Tamati could be the answer for them.
All right.
Unfortunately. But unless someone else has heard something and I'm just making this story up, then let me know.
Yeah. Jason Riles, he might be like Andrew Webster and watching this regularly.
He's a massive Para fan.
Yeah. Jason Riles, get on the phone to Tamati and you will not be disappointed.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Jason Riles hasn't, Dylan Walker would have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fishing buddies, diving buddies, hunting buddies.
Look at this. It's like fits like a glove, mate.
Look at your smile.
Yeah. Mate, I'll happily have him. As I said, I think it's the best solution for him. My greatest fear for Tamati in the next few weeks, if he keeps on occupying this bench role, he's going to have a milestone game of 100 NRL first grade games, and he'll play 5 minutes off the bench. Now, how shit is that if that occurs?
Yeah.
So, and he's been through. We talk about players who have been through the rugby league roller coaster. I mean, God, he retired. Yeah. He retired. So the fact that he came back at all, absolute miracle. And to have a milestone match like that in a few weeks' time, if he keeps on picking up bench appearances, I think that would be so unfair. But, it's the toughest game in the world, as we say. And sometimes rugby league isn't fair to people,
Definitely.
It just isn't fair. Can we talk about Joe Tapine? Because you obviously saw him and his performance at the weekend. He was snotting people high. He's making fun of people with the old, crybaby type thing. And then the running commentary with the referee, oh my God, it's like he was reading Clint Gutherson's playbook or something, man. What was up with that? Because that's as animated as I've seen Joe Tapine. And I reckon before you even answer that, I feel like I know the answer to the question. It's because he was playing against the Warriors. And being a Kiwi, he wanted to get one up on them, right? And so he just took his game to some kind of weird level.
The thing with Canberra and what Ricky does is because they're in Canberra, they don't get spoken about, and it's they don't get the calls, things don't go their way, and they play this tough brand of football where the middles go after them and they just compete, which is what works for them, and they play to their strengths. which is a brand of football similar to round one against the Warriors. They play that type of brand of football.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, same as what you said, they turn up. A lot of media around the Warriors, A lot of media around the Warriors, especially back home anyway.
Yeah, and with good reason.
Yes, and
with very good reason.
And with good reason. So this was a big game in the context of the competition. But when you think, like you said, when you think of the individuals, you're coming up against your fellow Kiwimen, and the crowd, sold out crowd, they were loud. Yeah. They were loud.
And they were giving it to the Raiders as well.
And I got the feeling that the crowd was getting stuck in, like you said, getting stuck into all the Raiders players, because I saw at the end of the game...
Oh, on the eastern touchline, eh?
I saw at the end of the game when the Raiders won how animated they were towards the crowd.
Yeah.
So
you don't see that often,
Yes, so... I can only assume that the crowd were getting stuck into, and what's the young winger's name? Tamale.
Because he was the one who was leading the charge, mate.
He's only new to the game, so pipe down, brother. Pipe down.
Just take your lump, and move on.
Just pipe down. Good player, great player.
He's one hell of a carry on an eight.
He is an athlete. But I think the build up to this game, the fans obviously getting stuck into them, the moment and then winning it, I reckon it got to them at the end there, and they let it all out and showed everything. And Joe Tapine was one of those players. But Tamale, for me, who's only a young kid coming on the scene, throwing mana waves back to the fans and saying some kind of words to them as well, you knew that game was pinned at the top of the list for some of those players. And I reckon Ricky Stewart played the week in that game right into the hands of the Canberra Raiders. We're underdogs. We're going over to New Zealand. It's all about the Warriors. Let's go over there and just get a job done. Fly in, fly out mission. You know, the fans are going to boo us. He sold them the dream. He sold them the dream. And when they won, you could clearly see how much their week built up, and they let it all out. Because it would have been a different story if they actually lost their game.
Oh, yeah. Because when I was watching the Vision, I couldn't get over how over the top they were with the celebrations. But it wasn't the celebration. It was literally directed to the grandstand and like taking the piss.
Yeah.
I can't remember a time where I've seen that as obvious as it was at Mount Smart that day. Because, you know, like I think back to, you know, when Matt Lodge was sent off and he ripped the fingers and all that. But that was like one player in an isolated incident. This was like a whole handful of Canberra Raiders
there was at least
going
five
at the
of them.
fans.
There was at least 5 of them facing towards the stand, rather than celebrating the moment,
with each other,
how big it was. They were over with the fans, getting stuck into them. And I think I've seen one other person do something like,
who?
Ronaldo.
Hey.
But Ronaldo's a character in the game. He hypes the fans up the whole game. It's not just that last moment that he goes out and throws a mana wave. It's the whole 80 minutes. If it's not the crowd for Ronaldo, it's the players in front of him. So you expect that from him. You expect it from him. But what I saw and what you saw, and I guess the fans saw as well, is this was a fully charged Canberra Raiders directed straight at the fans rather than celebrating the moment. So, like I said, I think Ricky sold them the dream during the week and let their emotions out after the game towards the fans after, another great strong win from the Canberra Raiders.
Okay, Blairy, time for Betcha This Happens for round 13, and round 12 was it was statistically our worst round ever.
Wow.
And the only match that we got right was the one we flipped the coin for.
Where's the coin? We flip again.
Oh, mate, I think my son spent the coin.
Lollies. I can't believe, what was it, 5 matches?
Yeah.
And
just one right.
We didn't pick any of them besides the flip of the coin. And
yeah,
I watched that first game. Was it Bulldogs? Dolphins?
Yeah, Bulldogs, Dolphins.
Horrible weather. Horrible. And
you were adamant that the Bulldogs were going to win.
Hold on. My thought is that with those halves and watching them play, they were outstanding and controlled their game. They took the game away from those Bulldogs, but the field was horrendous. The weather was terrible, and the Dolphins were outstanding.
Yeah, and then it didn't get better for me because I think I went against the Eels and they won handsomely. So, yeah. So, as we generally say, hoping for a lot better in Betcha This Happens for round 13. Dragons and the Knights.
Yeah.
Dragons.
Okay.
Well, you can try and convince me that your Knights are going to beat them, but I think Dragons at home.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah?
Go for it.
Well, try and convince me. Why are the Knights going to win against the Dragons?
I think on the back of their last performance, I saw, I don't work in directly with the NRL squad.
Yeah.
So this is purely observation of the game. I thought they had a bit of a different mindset and change of game plan around the structure of how they played. Previously, and we've all seen it, everyone's seen it, a lot of shift-to-shift plays to help. I'm guessing everyone says Kalen Ponga.
Yeah.
Kalen Ponga wasn't there, so they had to really try and change a few things up. Fletcher Sharp, whoa, that kid can play, man. He is an outstanding player. Dylan Lucas, got an eye on the future on that kid. He can play as well. So you clearly saw a shift in structure and team cohesion and different styles of play, rather than a wide, long shift to sideline to encourage teams to get up and just slow them down. So my thoughts would be that Newcastle will mimic something similar. I'm not there, obviously, this week. So this is just purely going on the back of their last performance, built some confidence off the back of that. Yeah. A few little tinkers with everything. They've been in these holes before. Adam O'Brien has said that, and they're going to come out somewhere or another and go on a 10-win streak.
Oh, wow.
Game.
Okay.
Get them all the way to the finals.
And so it starts this weekend,
so it
this
starts
Friday night?
Again, well, on the back of their performance against Penrith. And don't get me wrong, I understand Penrith are under strength, but you still can only play with what's in front of you, and I thought they did a pretty good job against the Penrith Panthers.
Was that enough to convince me to go against my original pick? All right. Look, because you're here in the country, and you're my boy, we'll go the Knights.
Let's go.
Okay. We'll move on quickly. Titans are going to lose to the Melbourne Storm. North Queensland are going to rub it right in the Tigers' faces. I'm thinking the Broncos are going to beat the Seagulls. They've only had one win in their last 6, the Broncos, and that is a star-studded roster. They need to start doing better, because otherwise, season over, and that would be shocking for Michael Maguire. So I think the Broncos start to get moving this weekend. They beat the Seagulls. I think the Warriors beat the Rabbitohs. I'm going to pick my Parramatta Eels to beat the Panthers.
Go for it.
Yeah. And then the game of the round.
Yep.
Roosters and Raiders. Raiders hot off their beating of the Warriors at Go Media Stadium, Mount Smart. And the Roosters...
Wow.
Yeah. Like genuine shock. I still don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on this one.
I rode them off, bro. I think I said they were going to come last.
Yeah, and I agreed.
And they have been phenomenal with some of the players that have come through and played. Some of the boys that most probably wouldn't have played first grade are now playing first grade are enormous for them. And then they're going to get some boys back into the team.
Yeah,
they're only going to get stronger and better, grow more confidence, and there's no better way to challenge themselves against the Canberra to see where they actually are in the competition. So this will be a big game. I'm
thinking the Roosters, mate. I'm going for the Roosters. Yeah. Roosters to beat the Raiders.
Yep.
Toya in the centres. Oh. He's been enormous.
He'll come back with confidence off the back of Origin, whether they win or lose.
They'll lose. They'll lose.
Should have burnt that. I'll pull that down behind us.
A couple of weeks ago, I said, hey, come over here and rip it down.
I'm here, eh? You didn't think I was coming, did you? You didn't think I was coming. But like, he's going to have so much confidence on the back there and come back a better player, being around some of those superstars that he is with in camp.
Yeah. All right. So that's a multi of 64.90. So I'm only going to put $1 on that. 64.90. 7 games this weekend. As always, R18 and bet responsibly when using the Betcha app. Adam, I think that'll do us for another episode of League of Our Own. You need to go and rest your bloody voice in your throat so you can keep screaming at those kids ahead of the weekend where you're going to be doing some more screaming.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure, Goran, and it's great that I could come here and be able to sit in your studio.
Your
house.
My house.
And do the thing that we love. No matter where we go, we seem to just make it work. And again, alongside all our fans that come in and tune in to, League of Our Own on our Instagram, our Spotify, our Apple, our network, on Run It Straight Network, keep coming in.
Yeah, please.
Some great content coming through and some great conversations. So we always appreciate all your fellas' support. So subscribe, tell your friends. Goran will tell his friends. I'll tell mine. And,
I don't have many friends.
And come on board. So the beautiful game of rugby league, Goran.
Yeah, beautiful game. Yeah, you've got about 33,000 friends. I've got almost 1,000. So I'll tell my few and you tell your many. And hopefully we'll get everybody on board for League of Our Own. Blairy, awesome to see you, man.
My man, Goran.